Welcome back to Mixing Up Success. Today, I get to introduce someone, while rarely behind the microphone, is quietly behind almost everything I do. My husband, Herbie. Welcome, Herbie.
Hello.
If you know me personally, you know he is my biggest supporter. We both are running small businesses, and the reality is neither one works without the other. Herbie is a fourth-generation pear farmer here in Hood River, carrying on a family legacy that's deeply tied to the land and the seasons. I am a first-generation business owner, building something new with Dani's Kitchen Shop. Together, we're learning what it looks like to support both. Last fall, we intentionally started blending our two businesses with a more cohesive story, connecting the kitchen, the orchard, and the life we're building around them. And this month felt like the perfect time to invite him on the podcast. It's Pear Month, and here at Dani's Kitchen Shop, we're carving out space to feature pears and bring you proximity to the people who grow them and the work that happens long before fruit ever reaches the table. Herbie wears a lot of hats. He runs our small family orchard day to day, serves on the board of directors at our local packing cooperative, Diamond Fruit, and donates time, land, and resources to industry research in hope that pears continue to be part of the food system. He's also our sole tractor driver, which means when the orchard needs attention, the rest of life shifts around that reality. Behind the scenes, I support the farm through bookkeeping and business systems, and he supports my work in the kitchen and beyond. We juggle kids, seasons, and responsibilities together because in nature-led businesses, timing matters and teamwork is everything. I invited Herbie on today to give you a closer look at pears, farming, and what it really looks like to run a small family farm. Not the polished version, but the honest, behind-the-scenes one. Welcome, Herbie. Herbie, tell us a little bit about your family farm. How long have you been farming? What do you farm? And what does your daily life look like?
Well, personally, I have been farming for about 18 years now. Like you said, I'm the fourth generation. My dad, Tim, farmed for about,
We celebrated his 50th year on the farm together.
Yeah, so he had been doing that nearly 30 years before, more than 30 years before I came back. And so my daily life is a little bit of everything and whatever it needs to be that day. And a lot of times it's 3, 4, 5 different tasks in a week. So it's very diversive.
So for our listeners that don't know the life of a pear orchard, can you walk us through what the year looks like? So let's start with January through December. What does your year look like? Because there are down seasons and then there's go seasons. So tell us what that looks like.
Yeah. So this time of year, or January, like you said, people really start to ramp up again. And that means pruning tasks are taking place. And that's probably the most important task of the entire year.
And why do we prune pear trees?
Pruning is necessary for, if you just let the tree go, it's going to be an overgrown bush. It's not going to produce quality fruit. So the point of pruning is we have to do a very detailed job so that we create high quality fruit, which means good fruit size, fruit quality, which is to reduce blemishes, and also to help control with insect and pest pressure.
All right. So I'm going to talk as if our listeners don't know anything about pears. But one thing that you brought up was blemishes. And one thing that I'm always blown away by is we work so hard to create the perfect looking pear, because as it turns out, when it has a blemish or a bruise or a defect, what happens to it?
So pears get sorted into about 3 different classifications at the packing house level. And your goal is to have the most premium, unblemished premium pieces of fruit you can have, because that's where you actually make money. And then the second class has allowed some blemishes in, but you lose value there. You lose there's for the same piece of fruit that has a blemish, it's worth almost half as much money. And sometimes that means losing money or breaking even on that piece of fruit. And then beyond that, there's very limited market for anything severely blemished. And most of the time it's going to juice, which is you are generally paying somebody to come take it away.
Okay. So the work starts January, February in the pruning of the trees to make sure that we are going to grow the highest quality crop that we can. After pruning, what do we move into?
I'm going to have to get my bearings here because we just started the year. So after pruning, it depends on if you happen to be planting a new block in a given year. And that's the time of year where you might prep and plant new trees, which is a major project and very expensive project. And then beyond that, it's kind of daily maintenance of the orchard until thinning season happens. And thinning is mostly Bartlett's, sometimes Bosque. And what's happening there is fruit gets separated so that they don't grow in clusters and create a bunch of small, unmarketable fruit. So we literally are going through by hand and plucking off the undesirable fruit when it's the size of a ping pong ball or smaller, and separating fruit out so it gives it room to grow because the market demands high quality, large Bartlett's.
Okay. So your day from the time the growing season starts until harvest is really like kind of unpredictable because it's driven by nature and what's happening in the orchard.
Yes.
Another piece that I mentioned early on when I introduced this episode was that unique to our situation, we are a small family farm and Herbie is our sole tractor driver. I want to talk a little bit about that because there is a ton of tractor work. Can you talk about the different tractor work phases that you have?
So yeah, we're relatively small farm for a pear orchard, and that basically it can hopefully support one family, right?
That's our goal.
That's the goal. Sometimes it's hard to do that, and then when you have generations overlapping, it's even more hard to do that. But right now we're in a phase where I'm the only tractor driver. And so there's days where I might be on 3 different tractors doing 3 different tasks in one single day. Like right now, we are pruning, which means those prunings need to be mulched up. And so we take a flail mower and we mulch them back into the ground, and they help rebuild the soil. And then there's days where I'm going to be on a sprayer. I might be on a sprayer later in the day, be on the mower later in the day, be raking brush. And then tasks throughout the year change. So we'll spread fertilizer. We do grass mowing all year long. I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting about. We have, even though I'm the only tractor driver, we have about 4 tractors that we use for different tasks.
Yeah. And some of these tractor work things are critical and or dependent on what's happening. So I want to touch on the subject that nobody wants to talk about, which is spray. We live in a very agricultural area. I'm a runner, biker. I like to go out in the mornings and there's sprayers running all the time. So Herbie, can you give our listeners just a basic overview of what is happening to manage these orchards and what these sprayers are doing?
Yes, I will try my best. It's a very complex facet of the business. In the short answer is it's completely necessary. Spray seems to be a 4-letter word out in the general population. But what a lot of people don't realize is conventional orchard spray, organic orchard spray. They may even spray more often, more times throughout the year than a conventional orchard. It's all part of what we call integrated pest management, where we are doing all that we can to decrease the risk of insect damage or environmental weather damage or whatever it's going to be. And spraying is a part of that. And there's many different tools within spraying itself that we are using. And over the years, the tools we've used have become much more environmentally friendly.
Yeah. So I bring this up because I know we're not going to get into the nitty gritty and I don't want to cause a bunch of controversy, but I want to shed light on what's happening in these orchards. And I also want to shed light on the reality. I don't know of anyone other than a very active farmer that watches the weather and knows more about wind and temperature and humidity and all the things that are happening on a daily level than a farmer. I don't know anybody.
Yes, that is consumes during the season. My morning is wake up and assess what the weather's doing that day. That's every single day of the year.
What I've noticed, because we're married and we have kids, is now our kids, unbeknownst to us, I don't know if you've noticed, Herbie, are often talking about what the weather's doing in the mornings because literally we wake up and Herbie is telling us what's going to happen that day. I personally don't even look at the weather because I have Herbie.
Right. And this time of year, our kids are looking for snow days. But yeah, I don't even notice because it's so ingrained in what I'm doing. I check the weather forecast multiple times a day, and I'm oftentimes looking out as far as I can to predict what the week is going to bring because the weather really affects every task we do.
Yeah. And so I share that because from the time the growing season starts, because we're both small businesses, and we support one another and we're raising a family, it means I have to be the point person for kids and I have to be the one that flexes on what's happening and taking care of the necessities around our household because Herbie's job is very weather dependent.
Yes.
And so as we go through our year, we're in summer. What's happening throughout the summer? You're still managing kind of the day-to-day operations, but what else is going on?
Yeah, so early summer, late spring, we start planning out when and how much we need to start irrigating. And that through the summer, irrigation alone takes up a significant chunk of time from my day because we're small enough that I'm the one that has to do the bulk of every day-to-day task besides hand labor where we need multiple people.
Right. So you have a little bit more of a set schedule on things that have to be done during the irrigation season. And then the work varies on how the orchard's performing.
Yes.
Then we get to harvest. When does harvest start and how does that work?
Yeah, so our goal is to do everything correctly up till harvest starts. So we have a smooth transition into harvest and we aren't worried about, we're trying to get a quality piece of fruit that we can harvest. And then once your harvest starts, you can kind of breathe a little bit. And then the worry shifts to, am I going to have enough labor? Is the weather going to cooperate for harvest? A lot of people, we don't have cherries anymore. A lot of people start with cherries in early summer to midsummer, and they're worried about rain. They're worried about heat. My typical harvest starts in mid-August. And that's what they call summer pears, which is Bartlett's. Some people have Star Crimson. And so what our concerns are in harvest time for Bartlett's is it can be excessively hot in that time. And so we're starting early, a lot of times in the dark and trying to make it so our workers are the most comfortable they can be while they're working because it is very physically demanding work and they're very skilled people that pick fruit, and all of our fruit is picked by hand. Not a single pear is picked by anything but a human hand.
Yeah. And I want to take a minute and highlight, we're a small family operation and we have some families that have worked for us all of Herbie's life.
Yeah. A lot of people that work for me now had worked for my dad when they were high schoolers.
Yeah. And so they mean a lot to us and they've allowed us to continue farming. And we try to work together as best we can to make everything work for the people that help us build our business and live our lives.
Yeah.
I also want to touch on when pears are picked because pears are not apples and they're a different fruit. And this is one of the challenges with pears is that you don't just pick them off the tree and eat them. So, can you tell our listeners a little bit about the process from harvest to how pears are sold and ripened or
Yeah, that is another very complicated aspect of the business. And so the farmer's job is to get the pears off the trees in a timely manner at the correct time frame. And for different varieties, that means different things like Bartlett's, which we already talked about. They get harvested and they don't necessarily need time in cold storage before you can ripen it and eat it, but also you cannot eat it straight off the tree. It needs to go through the ripening process. So then the rest of the pears are considered a winter pear, and they absolutely need to have a life in cold storage. Winter pears need time in cold storage for about 30 days before they will actually ripen properly. And so what we do is we pick them on time. We send them to the packing house. The packing house decides where the best place to store those is going to be. They sort them, put them in a cold storage, minimum 30 days. And then they've gone through that chill period they need when they get sold. And then once they're sold, they are distributed across the world. And then once you bring it home, you can leave it in your fridge. You can bring it out, leave it on your counter in 5 to 10 days. It's going to be at a stage that you like to eat it. And for different people, that means different things. Sometimes people like to eat things a little on the crunchy side. Sometimes people like to let them ripen up and be really buttery and juicy, and all of that's okay. And then once you accidentally let it go a little too far, you throw it in a smoothie, put it in your blender, and it's perfect.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges in pears, I mean, I want to throw together a pear recipe, right? And it's the middle of winter and we've run out of our own storage of pears and I want to run to the store. I can't just run to the store and buy a pear and have it where I want it necessarily. So it takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of prep work and figuring out, at what stage you like to eat the pears. And pears ripen from the inside out, which is unique to the fruit in that you don't know the stage unless you're using them regularly.
Yeah, so one thing I forgot to mention, Bartlett's, they turn from a bright green to a yellow color as they get more progressively ripe. So they're very telling on when to eat them. But the winter pear varieties don't do that. They remain mostly the same color. And so you kind of have to play around with when you best like it. And a lot of times, the old saying was check the neck, where you push a little pressure with your thumb around the stem of the pear. And once it starts to soften up on that spot is when it's becoming ripe. But, I think that individuals should play around on their own and, have a few sitting out that they brought out at different times, slice them up, see when you like them. And, it might be different for different tasks as well. You want to throw them in a salad. Maybe you slice up a red anjo and have it be crunchier,
Yeah.
slice it thin, and it adds some different texture to your salad.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with pears, but they do present a challenge because if you buy a super green pear and you think you're buying a ripe pear, it can be really disappointing. And if you buy a green pear and think it takes 5 days, but then it only takes 3 days to get where you like it, and you eat it on day 5, it can be really disappointing.
Yeah. So consumer education has been a major challenge for the pear industry over the years. And there's no easy way to describe. You just kind of have to start experiencing it for yourself.
Yeah.
But don't be discouraged if it's not what you think it should be the first time. It might take you a couple times to figure out where you like your pear.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Herbie. And I really do encourage everybody to go out this month during Pear Month, buy a couple pounds of pears and experiment with them. It's a great, nutritious snack, and you can do so much with it. I want to jump back to our year. I'm going to give a quick recap. So, January, February, we're pruning, we're perfecting the tree to grow the best quality fruit that we can. From there, we get into the unpredictable days of managing the orchard, depending on what's happening in the environment and what's going on. We get into June, we're going to thin off some varieties. We're going to go hand remove undesirable fruit to make the best size and quality fruit for the remaining. Then we get into summer, we're irrigating on a daily basis, still managing those unknowns around environment, pests, all of the things. August, September, we get into harvest. We put the fruit away. What happens in the orchard, Herbie, at that point?
So post harvest, we first of all get to breathe a little bit. And that's kind of the first break we've had for several months. And so, but the work's not done. After harvest, we shift into kind of cleanup and shut down mode, and large operations jump right back into pruning again. That's kind of why I feel fortunate to be the size we are. It can be a struggle in some ways, but I also have a little bit of flexibility on time frame and scheduling. So we do go back in and put a post-harvest spray on, which is nutrients to the leaves for the most part, avoiding fungal infections and that sort of thing to help the tree kind of turn off for the year, store some nutrients for the following growing year. And then once that's done, there's lots of small tasks. We need to drain irrigation lines and kind of do another mowing and cleanup and
winterize the equipment.
Winterize equipment. It's just a laundry list of small tasks to get done.
Yeah. And since you're jumping on where I talk a lot about Dani's Kitchen Shop business, this is the time that Dani's Kitchen Shop ramps up. And if you followed along in my podcast and my business, you probably can remember that October through December, the fourth quarter of the year, is where I make about 40% of my bakery sales.
Yeah. So personally shifts my home job shifts to now I am more on the kids and planning out the holidays for our personal life. And our roles kind of shift to and the support system at that point.
Yeah. And so I share that because running two completely different small businesses is no easy task. And when both of us are the primary people, it means that we depend on each other a lot to help make sure our home life and our kids are managed.
Yes.
All right. Well, I appreciate you jumping on and sharing about the Pear year and kind of what your year looks like. But I want to ask you a few questions about running a nature-led business because it's very different from other business models. And so how much of your job do you feel is responding to nature versus actually planning?
Well, there's certain tasks that have to get done when they have to get done. And we do our best to mitigate what the weather is going to do to us to get those done. But sometimes we have no choice. This time of year, obviously, it's snow, it's rain, it's just being cold. In the summertime, it can be rain, but it can be heat. It's working outside in the sun, and that can be a danger. And harvest is rain, heat, all the above. It can be a very mixed season. So I can do all the planning I want, but at the end of the day, if I needed to spray today and it's raining, then I'm not spraying today. And so then I've planned out my week, and all of a sudden I have to shift to being productive in some other way because you can't fall behind. There's no making up time in this business. The trees keep growing, the fruit keeps growing, the insects keep working. They don't take days off for rain.
Yeah. And we live in a area that is known for its wind.
Yes, wind.
And Herbie, can you give us a farmer's perspective on wind?
Yeah, if it never was windy except for on a hot afternoon, that would be fine by me. We're in what's considered the windsurfing capital of the world, and I'm happy for anybody who enjoys that down on the river. But if the wind could stay on the river, that's fine. We don't need it up here.
Yeah. And just a little insight into the reality of what nature-led business means. It means that there are days where Herbie sits on the tractor for way too long, right?
Yeah. So back to wind a little bit. If it's windy, I cannot spray. It's not a responsible thing to do. And it's not practical. So the other thing wind does is it does cause that fruit blemish. One major problem is what we call limb rub, where a piece of fruit dangles and sits on the limb next to it. And all of a sudden it does that for the life of being on the tree. And it's now a cull rather than a premium piece of fruit. And so there's many ways the wind can affect us. But yeah, when the weather is good, it's go time. And so if I have 40 acres to get sprayed and I have a 3-day window, I know the next 3 days I'm going to be on that tractor from sometimes before dark until the sun maybe goes down.
Yeah.
Or if the weather is too hot, I might be on that tractor from the time the sun goes down till the time the sun comes up.
Right. So the reality is that Herbie and I are constantly in communication about juggling life, dinner, kids, sports, all of the things, because our days don't look consistent. We don't have 8 to 5 jobs. I teach a lot of weekends and evening classes, and Herbie supports that. And I, in turn, support his orchard work. And when he's beyond the tractor, he's on the tractor.
Yep, absolutely.
We've shared a lot, and this is just very, very high level of small family farm orchard, talking about the year of a pear orchard and sharing a little bit of proximity for you, the listener, to what goes on to get pears to the grocery stores for you as a consumer to buy. One of the biggest challenges in agriculture is that oftentimes we're price takers and we don't have a lot of say in what kind of pricing we see. And I do all of our bookkeeping behind the scenes and help manage cash flow for our business, for our orchard operations. And one of the things is that we don't get paid out entirely from a crop until an entire year later.
Right.
So it takes, from the time we put the crop away from harvest, it will take another 12 months to see all of the income off of that crop. And we are, as growers, usually the last one to get paid in the chain.
Yes.
And so it's an interesting business model that I don't think a lot of people fully understand. And if you were starting a business and developing a business model, it's kind of silly.
Yeah. If you started from scratch in this business, you'd probably be waiting close to 2 years before you made your initial investment back.
Right. So I share that not to be negative, but just to share the reality of being in agriculture and being a price taker. Now, Herbie and I obviously have diversified. We have looked at numbers, we've looked at expanding the orchard, and we have made decisions in our life to go all in on different areas like Dani's Kitchen Shop and maybe diversify our income streams. And that doesn't mean that we aren't opposed to expanding someday, but we also recognize that expansion means a different business model for the orchard.
Yeah, my job and duties would completely shift into being just a manager of people at that point. And some part of the reason we haven't made that jump is the skilled people are not just readily available. It's something where you have to work towards expanding your employee base to be able to do that, because you cannot do this business without quality people.
So I wrote a brief blog about Pear Month, and I encourage you to take a look at that. It's just our perspective as a small family farm today and why proximity to food matters. I'll link it in the show notes. There's also a link to some free recipes along with a free shipping code to gain access to a value-added product that we launched this fall, Herb's Harvest canned Bartlett's. So, Herbie, you want to talk a little bit about value-added products and what farmers do to just help increase their bottom line?
Yeah, you and I haven't done this much in our farm life. There's several farms, though, that do rely on their direct consumer sales or Saturday markets or farmers markets or whatever it is. And that's a whole different personality
And model.
and model of the business. So, we saw that you have a direct to consumer outlet here. And we thought, well, why don't we just take some of our cannery, less desirable fruit? It's not less desirable in the fact of quality, it's just smaller sized. And let's can some. We have a great local cannery in the Dalles, just 30 minutes away. And so we went to them and we had a lot done. And we came up with a label and a name. And we thought, well, let's just try this. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah. My customers have purchased Herb's Harvest canned pears, and it's been a great way to put a little bit of extra back directly to us and not have to wait the long game on the return.
Yeah. And once you can a pear, it's almost like a different product altogether. Some people like fresh pears. Some people like canned pears. Some people don't like the other. And our kids keep asking for the canned pears over the fresh ones. In a way, they're kind of like nature's candy.
Yeah.
And we have to really hold back on giving it to them all the time. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a different product altogether, and it's worth trying if you haven't had before.
Yeah. So check out my blog, download some recipes. There's some fresh pear recipes as well as some canned pear recipes, and grab the link for free shipping. Our goal is to bring a little bit of proximity to the consumer of pears and shed some light on what happens in the pear growing world. Herbie, you've been farming for 18 years. Can you share what keeps you going? What is it about farming that you enjoy and why you intend to continue farming?
Yeah, I don't always have a good answer to that question because it is a difficult way to make a living. It's extremely demanding when it's demanding. I think the things that keep a pear farmer, or at least I can speak for myself, going is it is a very unique lifestyle. You get to live and care for and maintain beautiful scenery that you get to look at every day. And, we live in a beautiful part of the world anyway, but a pear orchard is a very unique thing. Our home is right in the pear orchard. There's nowhere I can turn where I don't see my job, which is
Also a
good
challenge.
in ways and challenging in ways, but it's a very unique community to be involved with. And I get to be a part of a community of people that truly are trying to do and produce the best thing for the land, for people.
If you can't pick it up, if you've listened to my episodes about building a business around a life, building a lifestyle you love, you probably know where that comes from. Herbie has taught me so much about the importance of building a life and a lifestyle you love, and not necessarily about the bottom dollar. Thanks, Herbie, for coming on and sharing so much with us about proximity to pears and what it's like to grow them throughout the year. This episode isn't just about pears. It's about what it takes to build a life around small businesses, especially ones led by nature. Whether you're a farmer, a maker, or someone who just wants to understand their food better, I hope this gives you a closer behind the scenes look. Check out our blog, follow along for more information about pears this month, and go out and try some pears.